Hey everybody, Keith Dotson here with another paper review, and this time it's a baryta surface paper made in the UK by a company called Innova. The company says this paper was designed to replicate the look of traditional darkroom prints. I decided to try a paper from Innova, a company that I'm really not too familiar with, because I heard that Dutch fine art photographer Bastiaan Woudt was using it for his editions. Although I'm not certain I have the exact same paper surface here that he uses, I have seen his prints in person and they are a knockout, let me tell you. First, let's do a quick rundown of the specs. This is Innova FibaPrint Ultra Smooth Gloss 285 GSM. It contains a smooth baryta surface that they call the crystal layer technology on an alpha cellulose base. Innova calls this their flagship baryta paper. It's acid and lignin free, which should promote longevity, but it's also rated at 111% brightness and 152% whiteness. I've never heard of paper that bright. And it does contain optical brightening agents, or OBAs. The paper has a 2.7 Dmax. Innova FibaPrint Ultra Smooth Gloss comes in 285 GSM, which is what I'm using in this video, and also a heavier 325 GSM. Innova provides ICC profiles for the paper, and I'll include a link in the show notes for those. Okay, y'all, with no further hesitation, let's see how this paper prints. First, let me acknowledge that I know a lot of you prefer to see some color samples, but I'm a specialist in black and white, so that's how I test. I hope you'll still find this exercise helpful. I'll show you a series of new test prints on the Innova FibaPrint Ultra Smooth Gloss, and then I'll offer some prints on other papers for comparison. My first sample print shows this old vintage Chevrolet parked in an old wooden garage and apparently left forever. I love the way it looked with the dual headlamps peeking out of the darkness. I shot this with a Sony A7R4. I like the very subtle texture of the paper. It's not identical, but it kind of reminds me of Canson Infinity Baryta Photographique, and we'll see our test print on that shortly. And it's also a little bit like the surface of Epson Legacy Baryta 2. This next photograph was shot on a Hasselblad 500cm on Cinestill XX film, and it shows an old junk Buick 8 covered in pine straw. To my eye, all of these prints are very neutral, not too warm or too cool. The details are sharp and the blacks are very nice and rich and dense. I couldn't find much information online about media settings for the printer, so I used the same settings that Hasselblad recommends for their baryta papers, and I think it worked pretty well. These old trucks were shot with a Canon 5D Mark III. The glare of the light gives you an idea of the reflectivity of the paper and the surface texture. If you look in the highlights, you can see a little hint of gloss differential. It's there, but it's not too bad in my opinion. An optional coating of UV spray should help hide that effect somewhat, and Hasselblad makes a good one. I'll include a link in the description. This black beauty was shot with a Hasselblad 500cm on Cinestill XX film and cropped into a rectangle because the film is fed on this frame in the camera. You're probably noticing that the texture of the paper surface is not intrusive. These are small prints on letter-sized paper. On a larger print, the surface texture would be essentially invisible. Again, the gloss differential is minimal here. Here's another. This is still the Innova FibaPrint paper. This photograph was shot with a Sony A7R2. I don't really make recommendations in these paper review videos, but I have to say I do like this paper a lot. Let's look at one more sample print before we make some comparisons to other papers. On a paper like this, the details of the rust and the tangled brambles shine because they don't compete with the texture of the paper. Okay, now you're familiar with the look of the Innova FibaPrint Ultra Smooth Gloss, so let's look at a few other papers. First, we'll start with a print on Canson Infinity Baryta Photographique. Note the similar paper surface in the highlights. I also said the paper reminds me of Epson Legacy Baryta 2. Here's the paper surface of that. And here's a print of a different image of that old black Chrysler on the Epson paper. This is a print on a new paper from Hahnemülle's Natural line. It's made from bamboo and cotton fibers, and it has a baryta coating. As you can see, it's a warmer paper and it has a pronounced texture. This is a photo of an old car out in the painted desert of Arizona shot with a Hasselblad X1D. In this clip, we'll look at a different image of that old car on two other baryta papers, starting with Hahnemülle's new Photorag Matte Baryta, which to me looks like an uncoated paper but retains crisp, sharp details and rich blacks like a baryta. This was shot with a Hasselblad 500 cm on Cinestill XX film. And the second print of this image is on the venerable Hahnemülle Photorag Baryta. Okay, now that we've looked at some competitor papers, let's look at some side-by-side comparisons. Hahnemülle Photorag Baryta, Canson Infinity Baryta Photographique, Innova FibaPrint. Here we can see the tones of these three papers for easy comparison. Well, I hope this video is useful to anyone considering Innova FibaPrint Ultra Smooth Gloss or maybe one of the other papers that we looked at. Thanks for watching. And by the way, every photo you've seen in this video is available as a fine art print on my website at keithdotson.com.